How could the sealed market for Magic the Gathering crash so suddenly? Is this just a case of overprinting boxes and players not desiring them anymore? Or is there something else at work, something that Wizards of the Coast may have had planned all along? Whatever happened to sealed box investing? Why are we where we're at right now? That's what we're going to discuss today in the video. So welcome back everyone, MTG Moxman here, and thanks again for hanging out with me for today's video. Welcome to the channel if you're new. So what we're talking about is sealed boxes. Now, sealed boxes have been around for 30 years, right? We all know the original draft boxes. It goes all the way back to Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited. Well, it's kind of changed up since then, hasn't it? We didn't know back then how investable and collectible a lot of these items would be. And now really it's kind of just collectible because the investment side for sealed boxes has completely fallen out. Now the funny thing is, yes, they still sell. And I will give you some examples in today's video showing, yes, that they sell, but that's not really the point. That's not what I want to talk about, because anyone can have a nostalgic moment and want to be able to recapture an amazing draft night, an amazing pre-release, or just a favorite set and you want to open it with your friends. And that's why some players out there will have cornerstone moments in their lives where they believe in those boxes. And if the boxes are cheap enough, they'll go after them. There's always going to be a little bit of the market, as long as Magic's around, that is going to go that route. But for a while there, boxes were really getting insane. I myself, early in this channel, had something called the 7-year rule, which means the boxes had to double in 7 years. But what happens if they haven't doubled? What happens if they haven't gone up far enough in price? Well, normally you just sit on them and say, oh, I just have to wait longer. My spreadsheets were off. But guess what? The spreadsheets aren't just off. They've tanked to zero. The idea of actually investing in boxes has gone an entirely different route now. With Play Booster boxes, it's even worse. But before Play Booster boxes, the increasing costs of buying sealed boxes meant that Wizards of the Coast had to have a hand in what was going on. And that's what we're going to start with, okay? The idea that Wizards of the Coast recognized probably about 2005 and onward that there was something happening in the sealed market. They noticed that old products were beginning to sell on the secondary market for ever increasing prices. When they saw things like Zendikar as well as Rise of Eldrazi and Worldwake boxes just a couple of years out of print fetching $600, $700, and $800, it's very interesting anyway that we had our first Modern series, Modern Masters, come around in 2013, isn't it? It's kind of interesting to see around that time frame when boxes started shooting up in price that we suddenly were introduced to a premium product lineup. But not only that, Wizards of the Coast also recognized that by not printing cards, by not adding cards back into the reprint equity pool, card prices stayed exceptionally high, which also bled into the secondary market for sealed boxes and allowed some sealed boxes that weren't really that great but may have had 2 or 3 very powerful cards inside to really buoy the value, really keep the value high on the water because there was a chance to get one of those cards. And that's where we find ourselves today because, as you guys know, Wizards of the Coast has gone ahead and reprinted everything into oblivion. They recognized the value that was not coming home to Hasbro. They recognized that they were unable to recapture that event the way they wanted to, so they decided, well, it's our IP, it's our property, we'll just reprint it the way we see fit, so we, the company, capitalize. There's nothing wrong with that. It's entirely in their purview to do so because the boxes we're talking about are not on the reserve list. But there is something that happens when you have a fallout, a disbelief in your market where something we held to be true falls apart, and that means the house falls down. And it's going to take a very long time for anything to go back up the way it was. Wizards used that reprint equity to such an extreme with so many amazing Modern Horizons 1 and 2 and reprints of Ultimate Masters and Iconic Masters and Masters 25. All these premium products drained the equity that was available to the company. And now we are where we are. But it also gives us a second to take a look at what's going on in the market. So let me share this with you. So here we have Cons of Tarkir. Now, back in September of 2014, this box was $99 Canadian, okay? Remember that. Canadian price around $79 US. But from there until today, these boxes currently sell for $230 Canadian as of March 2024. A couple of these boxes sold. But when we actually take a look at the cards within the set, all the mythics and all the rares inside the set, there's literally only one card of value anymore, the Altar of Blood, that falls into the rare slot, aside from the fact that we've got fetch lands. We know fetch lands are coming back around though, so that will devalue the possibility. This was the last standard set that got to have fetch lands inside of it. After this, it all went to that premium price point, and even this as a standard box, it just doesn't seem to hold the same value. It hasn't gone to $500-$600 because of all the reprints, and that's where the value is starting to fall off. Now, when we look at the mythics here, look at these 50-60 cent mythics, a dollar mythic. They don't hold any value in the market space. They do not contain the drive and power to warrant a box being bought. There's nothing, there's no allure, there's no attraction other than that nostalgic piece we talked about at the beginning. And yes, the fact that this particular box will have a chance at between 4, well, as low as 3, but as high as 6 fetch lands inside that box, there is still an attraction for this particular Cons of Tarkir box to be opened. And at $200 and something, yeah, it's probably going to cost you a lot less than buying a Modern Horizons 3. But at least Modern Horizons 3 boxes will have those fetch lands, but they'll have a whole slew of other cards that will have value. Now the question you have to ask yourself is, why are those cards going to have value? In the last 3 years, we've started to realize that Wizards of the Coast is tying reprint value as well as upcoming IP equity value into the nearest sets. They want to drive the prices higher, but they are offering certain key cards that do seem to hold value. Things like the Roaming Throne really haven't gone down at all. They seem to retain a certain level. You got Shield with the Apocalypse, and of course, everyone is saying these cards are going to get reprinted. And they will, but they will do it at their own pace. Wizards of the Coast will not be rushed into reprinting something that has value. They will tie these cards, they will tie that value to a premium product. You can wait, you can bet on it. Because you can see how they have devalued and drained the pool of cards available in other sets. And when they drain that value away, it doesn't leach back in. It's gone forever. So the older boxes that may have had some very key important cards don't hold the same value anymore, don't warrant the same box price. So really, realistically, a lot of these cards, unless they're in some form of reserve list box, a lot of these boxes are slowly going to decline in value. The only thing that can hold up certain boxes are going to be those rare events. And let me show you what I mean. Now, Battle for Zendikar is a little bit of a different set. Like most, it has something special about it. It had the first full art lands coming back into a standardized set, but this set also had a whole host of bringing back the Eldrazi. Now, here we have the Void Widower. It's the most expensive card in the set, and it's the only thing left, but not only that. We also have the Expeditions, the lost treasure kind of thing that they gave us, which of course have a lot of value. But they will only hold value insofar as Wizards of the Coast does not reprint these sets. Because again, as we've shown and as you go through and take a look at the value of the individualistic cards inside this set, you will see they are sorely lacking. Again, taking a look at the Mythic, you've got Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger. You have a few cards of value that have been reprinted down that used to be $60, $70 cards. Now, of course, as a game piece, you want to bring these things down. I understand, guys. But the idea that these boxes will still be worth money later on, you can see where there's going to be a discrepancy in the value of the cards within it versus the sealed box product. What Wizards of the Coast has effectively done is taken the whole pie for themselves. They've made sure to devalue the secondary market for sealed boxes, so other than the people who might want a nostalgic collectible appeal, there's no value there. And if there is value, just be aware that we're going to get to it and reprint that at a later date. Now this of course changes the entire equation of if somebody is going to buy boxes for any reason other than opening the packs. The sealed box investments we are used to seeing, and this does include collector boxes, remember, it's all reprintable, and they will get around to it sooner or later. The question is, when, not if. So knowing those facts and knowing you can look back on old products and see what they've done to them and see the devaluation, it lends that question why the sealed market has failed is as simple as looking back at what Wizards of the Coast started doing around the 2010, 2000. As soon as they started moving in, okay, they started realizing and recognizing the value. So I'm not going to put an exact timeline to it. I'm sure they started recognizing it back as early as '05, but they carried forward for a few years to see how the market interacted as they got ready to give us Modern Masters, as they got ready to give us these new premium products like Ultimate Masters, like Iconic, 25 and all the great ones we've seen. And they are great sets, don't get me wrong. Don't misinterpret this as some bashing on the products, because that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about anyone who collected thinking they were going to be truly investable products that could grow in value. Something for like a Battle for Zendikar there. That product was $119.95 Canadian. Nowadays it goes for around $230, $240, the same as Khans of Tarkir. Now, that is still the rule of double in the sense Khans is a 10-year-old product. It did double in value. It has. But at the same time, you could almost open the fetch lands. If you get 5 or 6, you actually make your money back on that box almost. It's kind of insane to think about. But that's where the product has gone. It has not attained the $500, $600 value which people would have thought was going to happen. Things we have talked about. In the past, certain content creators like myself would even say, these are going to be $500, $600 boxes. I've got it in my head. We'll talk about it. We can break down the equations. And it's not that that box still can't attain that value, because let's face it, it's still supply and demand. And if somebody one day, 30 years from now, wants to get a box of Khans of Tarkir, but they've been opened by YouTube content creators, there's just such a small supply. Yes, the values, of course, supply and demand will say it can still be driven up in value and still go higher than what people think it can. But as a general rule of reselling in a certain time frame, that is no longer the case. Wizards of the Coast has made their position clear, and they have dominated the table space because they can do it. And because they've done it this way, I think is one of the reasons we are seeing a very low secondary market appeal for a lot of these boxes. We are not seeing resales of 20, 30 boxes a month anymore. It's 1 or 2, if that. And because of that fact, and the slowdown in the market, and the fact that people like myself who are kind of investor collectors are not going to be buying all the new products anymore because they're so expensive, it is going to lead to a real difference, a difference of opinion between players, investors, Wizards of the Coast, game piece people, proxy players. There's always going to be this debate now, because it's going to be that thing where Wizards is now going to notice that nobody's buying the boxes. So how do they evolve from what they did back then and carry it forward to still get into our pocketbook? I think it's going to be secret layers myself, going directly to the singles market themselves after a product's been released to double capitalize on it, double bubble. But we'll see how it all turns out. Either way, it's fascinating to take a look at boxes, see how they break down, see why they are failing as an overall product to hold on to, and why the market kind of fell out from the bottom. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy them and love them. It just means they're not likely to be your retirement plan. Yes, they'll probably go up in value just with inflation over time, but they're not going to be the be-all, end-all plan that a lot of people thought back in 2013. So either way, guys, I can't wait to see your comments, guys. Thanks a lot for hanging out with me on the channel today. I really hope you got some good information from this video, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow for another one. So have a great day, everyone. Hey guys, a big shout out and thank you to the fantastic patrons I have on this channel, and thanks again to Average Josh MTG, because for some reason, I don't know what happened, but you got erased. So I fixed it. I hope you enjoy it. I gave you a little bit of panache there on the board, and I look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow for another video. So thanks again to all my fantastic patrons. I'll see you guys tomorrow. It's amazing to think, oh wait, welcome back to the Ramble Jamble. Now it's amazing to think of the effort, time, and work it would take to deconstruct what players built as a secondary market for sealed product, deconstructed it, and rebuilt it as premium products that they get to cash in on the prices that we thought the products were going to be 5, 10 years from now. It's fascinating to take a look at all these data points and take a look at all the different boxes and break them down and recognize what really happened. It's crazy to think that it's part of Magic's history now. Guys, thanks a lot for being here. Thanks for hanging out on the channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Don't forget, I gotta drink some coffee, and there's great times ahead. Even if I'm stuck with all this stuff, nah. You know what? I'm not going to leave yet. Let's hang in there for a minute. All this isn't going to zero. It'll hold a base value, always. Remember that, guys. If you bought a box, you actually didn't lose. It just means you won't make as much. Is that a better way of saying it? Because all those sets do have people who enjoy playing them. No matter how hated the set is, there are going to be players who enjoyed it. And there are going to be kids who played in those tournaments. There are going to be young people eventually. And they will come around and say, oh, do you remember this box? I didn't know this one existed. And they'll spend a couple $100, even $300, $500, because eventually Wizards will raise the price of boxes so we won't recognize the price. And it makes these go up in value. It drags them up. Always remember that, okay? Little MTG finance for you. Guys, thanks again. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the day. I got coffee, chicken, things to cook.